Have you ever wondered why so many Americans feel like they're working harder than ever, yet falling further behind? For decades, the middle class was considered the backbone of America. It represented stability, home ownership, reliable jobs, family vacations, retirement savings, and the belief that hard work would eventually lead to a better life. But today, something feels different. Millions of Americans are earning more money than their parents did. Yet many struggle to afford homes. They carry larger debts, they save less money, and they often feel financially insecure. So what happened? How did the middle class, once seen as the symbol of the American dream, begin to shrink? Was it inflation? Housing prices? Debt? Stagnant wages? Or is something much bigger happening beneath the surface? In this video, we're going to explore why the middle class is disappearing, what's causing it, and what it could mean for the future of millions of Americans. But before we talk about why it's disappearing, we need to understand what the middle class actually is. Because the definition might be very different from what you think. When most people hear the phrase middle class, they immediately think about income. They assume it's simply a certain salary range. But income is only part of the story. Historically, being middle class meant more than just earning money. It meant having enough financial security to own a home, raise a family, handle unexpected expenses, save for retirement, and still enjoy a reasonable quality of life. In other words, the middle class wasn't defined only by income. It was defined by opportunity. For many decades, millions of Americans believed that if they worked hard, stayed employed, and managed their money responsibly, they could achieve that lifestyle. And for a long time, many people actually did. But over the last several decades, cracks have started to appear in that system. Today, many Americans feel like they're running faster just to stay in the same place. The cost of housing has exploded. Healthcare costs continue to rise. Education has become more expensive. And everyday necessities consume a larger share of household income than they once did. At the same time, wages haven't always kept pace with those increases. The result? A growing number of people who technically earn middle-class incomes, but no longer enjoy a middle-class lifestyle. And that's where our story begins. To understand why the middle class is shrinking, we first need to look at one of the biggest changes in modern America: the rising cost of simply owning a home. For generations, owning a home was one of the biggest symbols of middle-class success. People worked, saved money for a down payment, bought a house, and slowly built wealth over time. A home wasn't just a place to live. It was often a family's largest financial asset. In many cases, it was the foundation of long-term financial security. But today, that path has become much more difficult. Let's imagine two families. The first family bought a home in the 1980s or 1990s. The second family is trying to buy a home today. The difference between their experiences can be shocking. Decades ago, home prices were significantly lower relative to income. While buying a house still required effort and sacrifice, it was often achievable for a typical middle-class household. Today, many young Americans face a completely different reality. In many cities, home prices have risen much faster than wages. As a result, saving for a down payment can take years longer than it once did. And even after saving enough money, many buyers discover that monthly mortgage payments are far higher than expected. This creates a frustrating situation. People do everything they were told to do. They work hard. They earn degrees. They build careers. They save money. Yet home ownership still feels out of reach. And housing costs don't only affect buyers. Renters face similar challenges. Across many parts of the country, rent has increased dramatically. For some households, housing expenses consume a large portion of monthly income. The more money spent on housing, the less money remains for investing, saving, or building wealth. Think about that for a moment. If a family spends half of its income just to keep a roof over its head, how much is left for the future? Not much. This is one of the reasons many economists consider housing affordability one of the biggest threats to the middle class. And the impact goes beyond finances. Housing affects family decisions. Some people delay marriage. Others delay having children. Many postpone major life goals simply because housing costs are so high. The American dream was once closely connected to home ownership. But for a growing number of people, that dream feels increasingly distant. Now, housing is only one piece of the puzzle. Even people who already. For many Americans, the problem isn't simply that prices are rising. The problem is that income often isn't rising fast enough to keep up. For decades, workers have become more productive. Technology has improved. businesses have become more efficient, and the economy has continued to grow. Yet many workers feel that their financial situation hasn't improved at the same pace. This creates a growing gap between expectations and reality. People are told to work hard, get an education, build a career, and success will follow. But for many households, the math no longer feels as simple as it once did. Imagine a young adult graduating from college. They're excited about the future. They've invested years into their education. They're ready to start building a life. But before they even receive their first paycheck, they may already be carrying significant student loan debt. Now add rent, transportation costs, insurance, healthcare, and daily living expenses. Suddenly, a large portion of their income is already committed. And that's before saving or investing even begins. This is where debt becomes a major challenge. Debt itself isn't always the problem. The problem is when debt consumes future income. Think about a typical middle-class household. There may be a mortgage payment, a car payment, student loans, credit card balances, and various monthly expenses. Each payment may seem manageable on its own, but together, they create a powerful financial burden. Month after month, a significant portion of income disappears before families have an opportunity to build wealth. This creates a frustrating cycle. People aren't necessarily spending recklessly. Many are simply trying to maintain a normal lifestyle. They're paying for transportation to work. They're paying for housing. They're paying for education. They're paying for necessities. Yet they still struggle to move forward financially. Now let's talk about credit cards. Credit cards can be useful financial tools when managed responsibly, but they can also become dangerous when used to bridge the gap between income and expenses. Imagine a family facing rising costs. Groceries become more expensive. Utilities increase. Unexpected expenses appear. Instead of reducing spending immediately, many households rely on credit cards to fill the gap. At first, it feels manageable. But over time, balances grow. Interest charges accumulate. And what started as a temporary solution becomes a long-term problem. Eventually, families find themselves paying interest on purchases they made months or even years ago. That's money that could have been saved, invested, or used to improve financial security. The result is a growing sense of pressure. And financial pressure affects more than bank accounts. It affects mental health, relationships, family decisions, career choices, and overall quality of life. When people constantly worry about money, stress becomes part of daily life. Many Americans aren't just concerned about today's bills. They're worried about the future. Will they be able to retire comfortably? Will they ever afford a home? Will they be able to support their children? These concerns are becoming increasingly common. And that's one reason why so many people feel that the middle-class lifestyle is slipping away. But there is another important factor we haven't discussed yet. The economy has changed dramatically over the past few decades. And those changes have created both opportunities and challenges. Some people have adapted successfully. Others have struggled to keep up. To understand why, we need to look at how wealth is being created in the modern economy. Because the rules of financial success today are very different from the rules that existed 50 years ago. Here's an important question. If working harder isn't always enough, what skills, habits, or strategies are becoming more important in today's economy? The answer may explain why some households continue moving ahead while others fall behind. And that's exactly what we'll explore next. Let's step back for a moment. Imagine you were building a middle-class life in America 50 years ago. For many people, the formula was relatively straightforward. Get a stable job. Work for the same company for many years. Receive regular raises. Buy a home. Save for retirement. And gradually build wealth over time. That system wasn't perfect. But for millions of families, it worked reasonably well. Today, however, the economy looks very different. Technology has transformed entire industries. Automation has replaced certain types of work. Global competition has increased. And many traditional jobs have changed dramatically. This doesn't mean opportunities have disappeared. In fact, new opportunities are being created every year. The challenge is that the skills required to succeed are changing faster than ever before. They're earning money. They're working hard. Yet achieving the same lifestyle their parents enjoyed often requires significantly more effort. This is why the conversation about the middle class has become so important. Because the middle class has historically been one of the strongest foundations of economic stability. When middle-class families thrive, they spend money. They buy homes. They start businesses. They invest in education. They create opportunities for future generations. But when financial pressure increases, those opportunities become harder to reach. Now here's the good news. The future is not predetermined. Economic conditions change. Markets change. Technology changes. And individuals can adapt. While no one can control every economic force, everyone can control certain financial decisions. For example, learning new skills can increase earning potential. Reducing unnecessary debt can improve financial flexibility. Building an emergency fund can provide stability during difficult times. Investing consistently can help build long-term wealth. And perhaps most importantly, understanding how money works can lead to better decisions. Remember the difference between income and wealth. Income is what you earn. Wealth is what you keep and grow. Many people spend years trying to increase income while ignoring wealth-building habits. But financial security often comes from combining both, earning more, saving more, investing more, and making intentional financial decisions over time. Let's go back to the question we asked at the beginning. Why do so many Americans feel like they're working harder but falling further behind? After everything we've discussed, the answer becomes clearer. It's not just one issue. It's a combination of factors. Rising housing costs, inflation, debt, changing economic conditions, the growing importance of assets, and the increasing challenge of maintaining financial stability in a rapidly changing world. These forces work together. And together, they've placed enormous pressure on the middle class. But understanding these forces is powerful. Because once you understand the game, you can start making different moves. You can focus on building skills that remain valuable. You can prioritize financial education. You can develop better spending habits. You can invest in assets rather than liabilities. And you can make decisions based not only on today's needs, but on tomorrow's opportunities. Will these changes happen overnight? No, probably not. Building financial security is rarely a quick process. In most cases, it's the result of hundreds of small decisions made consistently over many years. That's true for individuals. And in many ways, it's true for entire economies as well. The future of the middle class will depend on how people, businesses, and governments respond to these challenges. But on a personal level, the most important thing is understanding that financial success is still possible. The path may look different than it did decades ago. It may require different skills, different strategies, and different expectations. But opportunities still exist. And those who adapt often put themselves in a much stronger position for the future. So here's the question I want to leave you with. Do you think the middle class is disappearing? Or is it simply changing? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear your perspective. And if you enjoyed this video, subscribe for more content on money, economics, investing, wealth building, and financial psychology. Thank you for watching. And remember, the economy will always change. But the ability to learn, adapt, and make smart financial decisions will always remain one of the most valuable assets you can own. See you in the next video.